हरे कृष्ण। भजहु रे मना श्री नंद नंदन अभय चरण रविंद रे। भजहु रे मना श्री नंद नंदन अभय चरण रविंद रे। दुर्लभ मानव जन्म सत्संगे, दुर्लभ मानव जन्म सत्संगे, तरोहु ए भव सिंधु रे, तरोहि ए भव सिंधु रे। भजहु रे मना श्री नंद नंदन अभय चरण रविंद रे। सीता तपा बत बरीसना, सीता तपा बत बरीसना, ए दिन जामिनी जागिरे, ए दिन जामिनी जागिरे। विफल से विनु कृपण दुर्जना, विफल से विनु कृपण दुर्जना, चपल सुख लाभा लागिरे, चपल सुख लाभा लागिरे। भजहु रे मना श्री नंद नंदन अभय चरण रविंद रे। ये धन यौवन पुत्र परिजन, ये धन यौवन पुत्र परिजन, इते की आचे परितीति रे, इते की आचे परतीति रे। कमल दल जला जीवन तलमला, कमल जल दला जीवन तलमला, भजहु हरिपद नीति रे, भजहु हरिपद नीति रे। भजहु रे मना श्री नंद नंदन अभय चरण रविंद रे। श्रवण कीर्तन स्मरण वंदन, श्रवण कीर्तन स्मरण वंदन, पाद सेवन दास्य रे, पाद सेवन दास्य रे। पूजन सखी जन आत्मनिवेदन, पूजन सखी जन आत्मनिवेदन, गोविंद दास अभिलाष रे, गोविंद दास अभिलाष रे। भजहु रे मना श्री नंद नंदन अभय चरण रविंद रे, अभय चरण रविंद रे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद, जय जय प्रभुपाद, जय जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव गुरुदेव, जय जय गुरुदेव। इथाय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल, इथाय गौर हरि बोल। Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Mataji, can somebody read the translation, please?
Hare Krishna. May I read, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
Translation. Who might just worship the lotus feet of the son of Nanda, which makes one fearless. Having obtained this rare human birth, cross over this ocean of worldly existence to the association of saintly persons. 2. Both the day and night I remain sleepless, suffering the pains of heat and cold, the wind and the rain. For a fraction of flickering happiness, I have uselessly served wicked and miserly man. 3. What assurance of a real happiness is there in all of one's wealth, youthfulness, sons, and family members? This life is tottering like a drop of water on a lotus petal. Therefore, you should always serve and worship the divine feet of Lord Hari. 4. It is desire and great longing of Govinda Dasa to engage himself in the 9 processes of bhakti, namely hearing the glories of Lord Hari and chanting those glories, constantly remembering him and offering prayers to him, serving the Lord's lotus feet, serving the Supreme Lord as a servant, worshipping him with flowers and incense and so forth, serving him as a friend, and completely offering the Lord one's very self. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prasad Prabhu. Nandad Pranam. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for Prabhuji's Mataji attending the class today. Thank you, His Grace Lilananda Prabhu, for giving me this opportunity to spend some time reading Srimad Bhagavatam yesterday. I prepared just using Srila Prabhupada's purports. So please forgive me if I speak anything wrong. That's all my mental concoction. Let's do the prayers to seek blessings from our acharyas before starting. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parjana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
The rest of the slokas you can sing along with me. Narayanam Namaskrityam Narancheva Narottamam
Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudiri
Ashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhakti Bhavati Krishnaya Vasudevaya Nandagopamaya Govinda Namah
Pankajanaభాయ Namah Pankajamaline
Namah
Namah
Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajandre Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaur Prishe Namaha Namo Brahmanyaya Devaya
Gobrammana-hitaya च जगद्हिताय कृष्णाय
Krishnaaya
गोविन्दाय
Govindaya
नमो नमः।
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya
कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नामिने
Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha
निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे
Hare Rama
हरे
Rama Hare Hare
हरे
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
कृष्णा हरे
Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna
हरे
Krishna Krishna
कृष्णा
Hare
कृष्णा
Hare
हरे
Hare Rama
हरे राम राम हरे हरे
Om Mukam Kavati Vacharam Pankham Lankhayate Girim Yatkupahatam Hamandim Kandiyotarinam Kinam Purnamanamadam Krishna Poitra Poitra Vasarvastan Topya Sparyapan Rekashas Bhairam Rekashmi Rashmi Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Shri Vishnu Hare Krishna Prabhuji Matajis. Let's do a quick recap of chapter 6, creation of universal form, before we move to chapter 7. In this chapter, the development of the gigantic universal form is described. And then the manifestation of different demigods from universal form and how they appeared from the Virat Rupa is described. And Slokas 27 to 34 discuss development of planets, living entities, and varnas. The 3 planetary systems, the 4 varnas have been described. And the last section of chapter 6, Maitreya Muni felt unworthy to describe Lord's unlimited glories. So he is not able to describe anymore because there's so much potency in the Virat Rupa. And he says at the end, demigods, Brahma, even Lord Hari himself cannot understand the Lord's glories. He is beyond words, mind, and ego. So this chapter is beautifully explained by my god brothers in the previous classes. So just giving you a recap of the chapter. And then chapter 3.7 is about further inquiries by Vidura. So as you know, the context is Vidura is asking Maitreya Muni all these questions. They're almost in parallel to the questions asked by Parikshit Maharaj to Sukadeva Goswami. This chapter is divided into 5 parts. First sloka to 7th sloka, Vidura inquires about Ishvara and Jiva. Specific questions about Ishvara and Jiva that have been asked. 2 to 4, how can the Lord, who is spiritual and transcendental, can be connected with material gunas? Vidura asks, he is spiritual and transcendental, how is he connected to the material modes? That's the first question. And that's about Ishvara. 5 to 6 question is about the Jiva, spirit soul. And he asks, you're telling the spirit soul is transcendental and always blissful and uncontaminated. How is it contaminated through contaminated by ignorance? And why is the Jiva suffering? It's a question that is asked. Actually, Vidura is all known. He is a Pandita. He knows everything. But the reason he's asking all those questions is for us, for helping us to understand all these things. Then Slokas 8 to 14, Maitreya Mahamuni dispels all the misconceptions. He starts answering the questions about Ishvara and Jiva, and he gives a solution. Right? He says, this is why the reason for so and so. And he says, the solution for all this is bhakti, devotional service. And then Vidura understands all the answers and he shares his heartfelt realizations with Maitreya. And he says in Sloka 15 that thank you very much. All my doubts are dispelled. And you give such a convincing answers. And he with conviction, he says the association of devotees is the way to vanquish all the miseries. So that's the first part. That's the first 3 parts of this chapter. And then Vidura again starts asking more and more questions. Like Slokas 21 to 38 are so many questions asked by Vidura. And these questions are answered throughout Bhagavatam. There are so many questions asked, and then in Bhagavata Subodhini, His Grace Gauranga Darshan Prabhu explains and gives references to the chapters where these are answered. I'll share this PPT so that you can see where these are answered, but they're answered throughout the Bhagavatam. And the last 3 slokas of this section, Vidura declares his confidence in Maitreya. And he says, without a guru, one cannot have the knowledge of devotional service. And then the purpose of this inquiry is to hear the pastimes of Hari. He wanted to hear all the pastimes of Hari through his questions. And he is asserting that his answers will provide immunity from all miseries, which is the greatest charity. So this chapter is nicely divided in this way. So we'll go one by one. So there are some slokas I will go in detail. Some slokas I will we'll just read the translations, because there are almost 40 plus slokas in it. First sloka. Shri Shuka Uvacha evam bruvana Maitreyam Dvaipayana Suto Budhaha Trinayam Iva Bharatya Vidura Pratyabhashata. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, while Maitreya, the great sage, was thus speaking, Vidura, the learned son of Dvaipayana Vyasa, expressed a request in pleasing manner by asking this question. So this is the introduction to this chapter. Started to ask questions. So that was the first question about Ishvara. Vidura Uvacha Brahman Katham Bhagavatas Chinmatrasya Avikarina Lilaya Chapi Ujjeran Nirgunasya Gudakriya. Translation. Can somebody do the translation?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please.
Shri Vidura said, O great Brahmana, since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the complete spiritual whole, such and is unchangeable, how is he connected with the material modes of nature and their activities? If this is his pastime, how do the activities of the unchangeable take place and exhibit qualities without the modes of nature? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, Vidura is asking 2 questions here. How is Lord, who is spiritual, Chinmatrasya, spiritual is Chinmatrasya, and transcendental, Nirgunasya, be connected with the material gunas, right? He is spiritual. It means he has spiritual body, and transcendental, Nirgunasya, he doesn't have any gunas, means like he doesn't have any material gunas. So if so, why is he connected to the material world? Why is he involved in creating the material world? And why is he also connected to the material gunas? That is 2 questions. Third question he asked is, he is avikarasya. Avikarasya, avikaranaha means unchangeable. He never changes. But he is creating things that change. Why is he doing that? Right? He is spiritual, Chinmatrasya. He is nirguna, without modes. And he is avikarina. It doesn't change. But he is, how is he causing the change? How is he creating the change? These are the questions he is asking. Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, along with explaining the question, he also answers a lot of the questions as well. So it's important to read this purport. So let's read this purport. Can somebody read the first paragraph?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
As described in the previous chapter, the difference between the Super Soul, the Supreme Lord, and the living entities is that the activities of the Lord in creating the cosmic manifestation are performed by the Lord through the agency of his multifarious energies. But this manifestation is bewildering to the living entities. The Lord is therefore the master of the energies, whereas the living entities are subjugated by them. By asking various questions about transcendental activities, Vidura is clearing the misconception that when the Lord either descends to the earth in his incarnation or appears himself with all his potencies, he too is subjected to the influence of Maya, just like an ordinary living entity. This is generally the calculation of less intelligent philosophers who consider the position of the Lord and that of the living entities to be on the same level. Vidura is hearing the great sage Maitreya refute these arguments. The Lord is described in this verse as Chinmatra, or completely spiritual. The personality of Godhead has unlimited potencies to create and manifest many wonderful things, both temporary and permanent. Because this material world is the creation of his external energy, it thus appears to be temporary. It is manifested at certain intervals, maintained for some time, and again dissolved and conserved in his own energy. As described in Bhagavad Gita 8.19, Bhutva praliyate. But the creation of his internal potency, the spiritual world, is not a temporary manifestation like the material world, but is eternal and full of transcendental knowledge, opulence, energy, strength, beauties, and glories. Such manifestations of the Lord's potencies are eternal and are therefore called nirguna, are free from all tinges of the modes of material nature, even up to the mode of material goodness. The spiritual world is transcendental even to material goodness and thus is unchangeable. Since the Supreme Lord of such eternal and unchangeable qualities is never subjugated by anything like material influence, how can his activities and form be convinced to be under the influence of illusory Maya, as is the case with the living entities? Jai Prabhupada.
The Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. So, Srila Prabhupada is explaining the question itself and also answering some other questions and the intention of the question, right? So, in the previous chapters, we heard how Lord is manifesting and creating the material world and through his energies, right? So, Lord is creating. So, the living entities and the activities are Lord in creating. So, the difference between Super Soul and Supreme Lord and the living entities is that activities of the Lord in creating cosmic manifestation are performed by the Lord through the agency of his multifarious energies. So Lord is creating the cosmic manifestation through his energies. He has his internal potency, the spiritual energy, and his external potency, which is the material energy. And he uses that material energy to create the cosmic manifestation. And what Prabhupada says is this is bewildering to the living entities. Right? So why? So Lord is the master of energies, whereas living entities are subjected to that energy. So there is a lot of misconception by Mayavadis, because they think when Lord comes to the earthly planets through his incarnations, with all his potencies, they think he is subjected to Maya. Right? A lot of people think Krishna is an ordinary boy with some mystics and magic. And they say, yeah, he also did this, same things that we did. But that is not true. And this is the question that is going to refute all those Mayavadis. Right? This is the calculation of less intelligent philosophers who consider the position of Lord and that of the living entities to be on the same level. Right? And Vidura in further slokas, you will see how he refutes the arguments. So, Prabhuji Maharaj, I have two questions for you. First question, why does Lord create the material world? What is the purpose? Why does he create the material world? Anyone?
For jivas to enjoy, because the jiva wants to enjoy like a Krishna. That is the reason Krishna has created this material world.
Haribol. Thank you very much, Prasad Prabhu. Second question I have is, you also heard in the previous chapter, Lord annihilates the material world, and there are multiple levels of annihilation. At the end of Brahma, when Brahma sleeps in the night, and the end of Brahma's life, partial annihilation, full annihilation. So Lord creates the cosmic manifestation of the material world, but he does annihilate too. Why does he annihilate? Why does he annihilate the material world in phases? Partial annihilation, full annihilation. Why does he do that? Anyone?
Prabhuji, maybe to make us realize that this world is temporary, and then maybe give us a second chance.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you very much, Bhaling Maya Prabhu. Correct. So basically, Lord doesn't want us to be attached to this material world, and make sure that it's a temporary thing, right? You don't want to be attached and think that it's permanent. If material world also permanent, everybody is here all the time. So by showing and by telling us that I annihilate this cosmic manifestation, after Brahma, during Brahma's night and after Brahma's life, he's telling us, don't be attached to this. This one I created because you rebelled against me and you wanted to enjoy on your own. I created it, but I also have put in the forces necessary in the material world to realize that that is not your permanent place. That is Ma Durga with her trident, Adidayvika, Adibhotika, Adhyatmika miseries. And then also during, through the scriptures, he's telling us that, I will annihilate this. This is not permanent. This is temporary. So don't be attached to this. Right? And in the second paragraph, Prabhupada gives a lot of examples of how to understand his question and some answers. Maybe somebody can read the second paragraph.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes,
I can read it, Prabhu.
yes, thank you.
A juggler or a magician displays many wonders. With his acts and arts, he can become a cow by his magical tactics. And yet, he is not that cow. But at the same time, the cow displayed by the magician is not different from him. Similarly, the material potency is not different from the Lord because it is an emanation from him. But at the same time, that manifestation of potency is not the Supreme Lord. The Lord's transcendental knowledge and potency always remain the same. They do not change. Even when displayed in the material world, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord descends to the earth by his own internal potency. And therefore, there is no question of his becoming materially contaminated, changed, or otherwise affected by the modes of material nature. The Lord is Saguna by his own internal potency. But at the same time, he is Nirguna, since he is not in touch with the material energy. The restriction of the prison house are applicable to prisoners who are condemned by the king's law. But the king is never affected by such implications. Although he may visit the prison house out of his goodwill. The Vishnu Purana, the 6 opulences of the Lord are stated to non-different from him. The opulences of transcendental knowledge, strength, opulence, potency, beauty, and renunciation are the identical with the personality of Godhead. When he personally displays such opulences in the material world, they have no connection with the modes of material nature. The very word matratva is a guarantee that the Lord activities are always transcendental, even when displayed in the material world. His activities are as good as Supreme Personality himself. Otherwise, liberated devotee like Sukadeva Goswami would not have been attracted by him. Vidura inquired how the Lord activities can be in the modes of material nature, as is sometimes miscalculated by the persons with a poor fund of knowledge. This in this
Inability.
this improbability of the material qualities is due to the difference between the material body and spiritual soul. The conditioned soul's activities are displayed through the medium of modes of material nature and are therefore perverted in appearance. However, the Lord's body and the Lord Himself are the one with same, and when the Lord's activities are displayed, they are certainly non-different from the Lord in all aspects. The conclusion is that the person who considers the Lord activities material are certainly mistaken.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, Srila Prabhupada is giving two examples here. One about a magician, and some magicians become a particular object like a cow by his magical tactics. Once he becomes a cow, he's not that cow, right? He's a magician, but this is a magic. The cow is displayed by the magician is not different from him. But similarly, the material potency is not different from Lord because it is emanated from him. So there is potent and potency. The Lord is the potent, and the material energy, material world is his potency. Even though the potency is coming from the potent, the potency is not the potent. Means like material energy is not the Lord. And the Lord's transcendental knowledge and potency always remain the same. They do not change. And he is not impacted by the material world's laws and then the gunas, right? And he never becomes contaminated because always is saguna. He's always saguna with his material, with his spiritual gunas, right? Second example Prabhupada is giving is a prison house is the place where you put people who have violated the laws. And the king visits the prison house sometimes, but he is never subjected to any of such implications, right? The restrictions are not for him. He will roam in the corridors freely, but the people who are implicated are in the barracks, right? Just because he visits the prison house doesn't mean he's subject to the laws of the prison, right? And he is very much full of six appearances, and he's always spiritual and is never contaminated by the materialistic gunas or laws, is what is clearly told in this shloka. Let's move on to the next one. 3.7.3. Kridayam udhyamo abhyasa karmas kridis sanyatah swatastraptasya cha katham nivrittasya sadanyatah. Boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys or with various diversions because they are encouraged by desire. But there is no possibility of such desire for Lord because he is self-satiated, self-satisfied and detached from everything all times. So, this is the second question that is being asked by Vidura, saying one example is giving. Some boys are playing and they keep playing because they have a desire to play. There is a desire inside their mind to play and they're enthusiastic to play. But he's asking, why is the Lord playing, in the sense, creating the material universe and changing things? When he is self-satisfied, he is Atma Rama, has everything he needs, and he doesn't have a desire to do anything. He doesn't need to do anything. Why is he doing that? Is a question that is asked, right? In the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying, since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one without a second, there is no possibility of anything besides him that can exist. He expands himself by energies to multi forms of self-expansion and separated expansion as well, just as fire expands itself by heat and light. There is no other existence beside the Lord himself. The Lord's association with anything manifests his association is with himself. The complete manifestation of cosmic situation is an expansion of the Lord himself in his impersonal feature. All things are situated in him only, yet he is not in them. This is the appearance of Lord's attachment and detachment. He is attached to everything, yet he is detached from all. So this is a question, that Vidura is asking. Impelled by the desire, children play, but the Lord is self-satisfied. Swatah trapta, without desires, and detached, nivritta. Then why does he create, maintain, and dissolve the universe? Why is Maya Shakti? That is a question that is being asked in this sloka. So this is a continuation of the same question about the Lord. By his self-sheltered potency of three modes of material nature, the Lord has caused the creation of his universe. By her, he maintains the creation and conversely dissolves it again and again. So Vidura is again asking, right? Why does he create and inhalate it again and again? When he's Atma Rama, self-satisfied. Let's move on to the next question. So we'll spend more time on the answers, but these are the questions. So second, third, fourth are about Ishvara, questions about Ishvara. Right? What are the questions that are asked? The Lord is spiritual, Chinmatrasya, transcendental, Nirgunasya. But how is he connected to the material gunas? Then the second question is, he's unchangeable, Avikarina, and why is he doing things that change? Why does he perform actions that indicate change? And then 3 and 4 are about his creation. He's self-satisfied, Atma Rama. And why is he creating and maintaining and dissolving the universes by his Maya Shakti? Why is he doing that? He doesn't need to do that because he has everything he needs. So 5 and 6 are about the Jiva, the spirit soul. Translation. The pure soul is pure consciousness and never out of consciousness, either due to circumstances, time, situations, dreams, or other causes. How then does one become engaged in nescience? What is nescience, Prabhuji Mataji? What is nescience?
Ignorance.
Ignorance, yes. So, the spirit soul originally is a full consciousness and full bliss, full of knowledge, right? But why is the spirit soul becoming ignorant or becoming engaged in ignorance, either due to circumstances, time, situations, or dreams, or other causes? Why is it happening? That's the question asked by Vidura. Can somebody read the purport, please?
I'll read.
Oh, yes.
The circumstances of the living being,
The consciousness.
the consciousness of the living being is always present and never changes under any circumstances. As above mentioned, when a living man moves from one place to another, he is conscious that he has changed his position. He is always present in the past, present, and future, like electricity. One can remember incidents from his past and can conjecture about his future also on the basis of past experience. He never forgets his personal identity, even though he is placed in awkward circumstances. How then can the living entity become forgetful of his real identity as pure spirit soul and identify with
matter
unless influenced by something beyond himself? The conclusion is that the living entity is influenced by the avidya potency, as confirmed in both the Vishnu Purana and the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. The living entity is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 7.5 as
Paraprakriti.
Paraprakriti, Para Prakriti. Yes. And in the Vishnu Purana, he is mentioned as
Parashakti.
he is mentioned as Parashakti. He is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord as potency and not as the potent. The potent can exhibit many potencies, but the potency cannot equal the potent at any stage. One potency may be overcome by another potency, but to the potent, all potencies are under control. The Jiva potency are the Kshatrajna Shakti of the Lord has the tendency to be overpowered by the external potency, avidya, karma, sanya. And in this way, he is placed in the awkward circumstances of material existence. The living entity cannot be forgetful of his real identity unless influenced by the avidya potency, because the living entity is prone to the influence of the avidya potency. He can never equal the supreme potent. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. As I said before, Srila Prabhupada, while explaining the question itself, is also answering here, whereas the answer is going to come in the next slokas. But for our enlightenment, he is doing that. So he's just explaining that the living, the spirit soul, and the individual being has an identity, and it's never lost, right? It's always there, past, present, and future. He never forgets his personal identity, even though he's put in different situations. But then, how is that living entity is becoming forgetful of his real identity? The spirit, he's talking about the spirit soul. And why is he identifying with matter? Why is the spirit soul identifying with matter? Right? Is the question that is asked. And the answer is avidya, nescience, ignorance, right? And the impact of the effect of Maya Shakti, the potency of the Lord. So this is the question, and a little bit of answer is revealed here, but the main answer will come later. So next question is, the Lord as super soul is situated in every living entity's heart. Why then the living entity's activities result in misfortune and misery? Right? You are saying the spirit soul is being ignorant and forgetting all his real nature, and is being impacted by three modes. But the spirit soul is the super soul. Paramatma is also in the heart of a living entity. If the Paramatma is in the heart of a living entity, why is the soul suffering? Why is the living entity suffering with misfortune and misery? God is there within you, right? Paramatma is there within you, but we are still suffering. Why, Prabhuji's Mataji, why are you suffering? When God is within you, within everyone, and this material world, the moment we come to the material world, even though God is there with us all the time, why are we suffering? Anybody?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Okay. We should be always remembering that we are away from the material, from Krishna. That is the reason we are having the suffering. Okay, the Maya will not keep it calm. Okay, she should be always making us to remember that you are away from Krishna. Because of that, now you are having suffering. So better you go back. Otherwise, we will happily living here in this world, in this material world forever. So the Krishna, okay, as we all children for him, we want to go back to Godhead. That is the sole reason.
Yes, that's correct. But the question here is, Prabhu, the Lord is with you in your heart, and he is telling you, guiding you. But even then, why is the living entity is resulting in misfortune and misery?
Because we don't realize
because
that
of the karma.
Because of the karma,
and
Yeah.
also we don't realize that he is there within. Okay, within us.
Because of free will, Prabhuji, our free will.
Perfect, Prabhuji, perfect. Thank you very much. So we don't listen to him. We are away from, we are turning away from him. We don't listen to him, right? That's what we
It's a
did.
Bahirmukhi. You are Bahirmukhi, right?
Hare Krishna.
He's saying we are Bahirmukhi. We're not looking towards Paramatma,
Yes,
and we're looking outside.
Yeah, we don't realize that he is there within us.
Correct, Prabhuji. You're right. That's
Really.
the God, Lord is there. He is so merciful that he is present in everyone's heart. Everyone's heart. He is trying to tell you. He is trying to help you. But the unfortunate situation is we are turning, first thing we turned away from him, second thing we don't listen to him. That is why we are suffering here. Right? I'm seeing very important here. Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, so we can read this probably. This is a good paragraph. Somebody can read this.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please.
The next question put forward by Vidura to Maitreya is, why are the living entities subjected to so many miseries and misfortunes in spite of Lord's presence in their hearts as the super soul? The body is considered a fruitful tree, and the living entity and the Lord as super soul are like two birds seated in that tree. The individual soul is eating the fruit of the tree, but the super soul, the Lord, is witnessing the activities of the other bird. A citizen of the state may be in the miseries for want of different supervision by the state authority. But how can it be possible that a citizen suffers from other citizens while the chief of the state is personally present? From another point of view, it is understood that the jiva, living entity, is qualitatively one with the Lord, and thus his knowledge in the pure state of life cannot be covered by nations, especially in the presence of Supreme Lord. How then does the living entity become subjected to ignorance and covered by the influence of Maya? The Lord is the Father and protector of every living entity, and he is known as the Bhutabrit, or the maintainer of the living entities. Why then should the living entity be subjected to so many sufferings and misfortunes? It should not be so, but actually we see that it happens everywhere. This question is therefore put forward by Vidura for solution. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna. So this, in this purport, Prabhupada explains the question and doesn't give an answer. So we will see the answer in the next slokas. So now the final question is, sum of all the questions, and Vidura is asking, please, oh great and learned one, my mind is greatly illusioned by the distress of the nescience, and I therefore request you to clear it up. He's asking, yeah, please help me and answer these questions. So now, from the 8th sloka onwards, Maitreya Muni starts answering the questions. Shri Shuka Uvacha Sa Ittham Chodita Kshatra Tattva Jijñāsuna Muni Parayataha Bhagavat Chitta Smayan Eva Gatasmaya. Translation. Shri Sukadeva Goswami said, O King Maitreya, O King, Maitreya being thus agitated by inquisitive Vidura at first seemed astonished, but then he replied to him without hesitation, since he was fully God conscious. This is a little surprising, right? Maitreya is such a learned person and a realized devotee of the Lord. This sloka says, at first he seemed astonished, he's a little bit bewildered, but then he replied without hesitation. Let's read the purport. Since the great sage Maitreya was filled with God consciousness, he had no reason to be astonished at such contradictory questions by Vidura. Therefore, although a devotee, he is externally expressed surprised, as if he did not know how to reply to these questions. He immediately became perfectly settled and properly replied to Vidura. Yasmin vijñate sarvam evam vijñatam bhavati. Mundaka Upanishad 1.3. Anyone who is a devotee of the Lord knows about the Lord to some extent, and devotional service to the Lord makes him able to know everything by the grace of the Lord. Although a devotee may apparently express himself to be ignorant, he is full of knowledge in every intricate manner. Right? Externally, he just showed a little bit of bewilderment just to, just for outside purposes. But internally, he is a devotee of the Lord, very much knowing everything, and he can explain even intricate details very well, which he's going to see in the other shlokas. Okay. 9. Maitreya uvacha seyam bhagavato maya yanna yena viruddhyate ishwarasya vimuktasya karpanyam uta bandhanam. Translation. Can somebody read the translation?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
Sri Maitreya said, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman or the personality of Godhead is overcome by illusion or Maya, and at the same time they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic. Hare Krishna.
Yes. So Maitreya Muni is refuting the illogical. It's saying that it is illogical to think Supreme Lord is overcome by illusion. So let's read the purport. There are beautiful examples given in this purport. Analogies are given. So we'll read the analogies. Can somebody read the first paragraph, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sometimes it appears that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he who is 100% spiritual, cannot be the cause of the illusory potency which covers the knowledge of the individual soul. But factually, there is no doubt that the illusory external energy is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. When Vyasadeva realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he saw the Lord along with his external potency, which covers the pure knowledge of the individual living entities. Why the external energy acts in this way may be considered as follows. As analyzed by great commentators like Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura and Srila Jiva Goswami. Although the material illusory energy is distinct from the spiritual energy, it is one of the many energies of the Lord, and thus the material modes of nature, the modes of goodness, etc., are surely qualities of the Lord. The energy and the energetic personality of Godhead are not different, and although such energy is one with the Lord, he is never overpowered by it. Although the living entities are also parts and parcels of the Lord, they are overcome by the material energy. The inconceivable yogam aishwaryam of the Lord, as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 9.5, is misunderstood by the froggish philosophers. In order to support a theory that Narayana, the Lord himself, becomes a Daridra Narayana, a poor man, then they propose that the material energy overcomes the Supreme Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura, however, offer a very nice example in explanation. They say that although the sun is all light, the clouds, darkness, and so forth are all part and parcel of the sun. Without the sun, there is no possibility of the skies being overcast with clouds or the sun or darkness, nor can there be snowfall on the earth. Although life is sustained by the sun, life is also disturbed by darkness and snowfall produced by the sun. But it is also a fact that the sun itself is never overcome by darkness, clouds, or snowfall. The sun is far away from such disturbances. Only those who have a poor fund of knowledge say that the sun is covered by a cloud or by darkness. Similarly, the Supreme Brahman or the Parabrahman, the personality of Godhead, is always unaffected by the influence of the material energy, although it is one of his energies. Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shruyate. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. So, the Mayavadis, the philosophy of Mayavadis is I am the living entity right now. I am being influenced by Maya because I lost I am God, but right now I am in the situation because I have been influenced by Maya. And once this is done, I become God again. And the fundamental question there is, if you are God, why are you influenced by Maya? Right? God is never influenced by Maya Shakti, Maya potency. So that is completely illogical, is what is told here. Right? As I told, there is a potent and a potency. Potent is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and potency is one of the energies. Like that, there are a lot of potencies that the Supreme Personality of Godhead emanates. And he is never influenced by any of these potencies or energies that he emanates. Whereas the living entity, the Jiva, is one of the potencies. He is subjected to the Maya energy, and he is subjected to that, but the potent, the Lord, is never influenced or subjected to any of the potencies or the energies that he himself is emanating from, right? The energy and the energetic personality of Godhead are non-different. Although such energy is one with the Lord, he is never overpowered by it. All the living entities are parts and parcel of the Lord. They are overcome by mental energy, right? They are overcome, but not him. So the misconception or misreading of the Mayavadis is about Yogam Aishwaryam. In 9.5, Krishna says, I am the mystic. I am the mystic of Yogam Aishwaryam. And they think, he is also influenced by Maya potency, which is not correct. That's why Srila Prabhupada calls them as froggish philosophers. And this concept of Naridra Narayana is also brought into the picture, right? You can hear a lot of people saying Manava Seva is Madhava Seva and bringing this Daridra Narayana into picture. They say the poor fellow is a Narayana and he is called Daridra Narayana. And it is very much well used, and it is completely refuted by Srila Prabhupada. And he says, Narayana can never be poor because Lakshmi is with him all the time. He has the 6 opulences, which includes one of the things is the most opulent of all opulences he has. So he can never be Daridra Narayana. And I was just hearing one of the purports, one of the classes on this, and it is said this term is coined to face the Christians who came to our country and started doing some philanthropy. So they started coming and started establishing hospitals and other places, and they started saying, here's a lot of poor people in the country, we'll serve them. And that's what is told by us by Jesus. And and then they claim that Hindus don't help the poor people. And to refute that and to counteract that, some of the Hindu leaders coined this word Daridra Narayana and started saying that we'll also serve the poor, which completely came back to us as a wrong thing. And Srila Prabhupada never accepted this, and it is completely wrong to say that somebody is Daridra Narayana, because Narayana is never Daridra. That is wrong conception. But it is unfortunate that it came. It was coined like that. And the second example given by Srila Jiva Goswami and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur is just like sun is never, we think the sun is covered by clouds, but sun is never covered. Sun is always there, and clouds are his creation, right? The clouds, the snowfall, everything is his creation. Everything is sun's creation because they are created by sun, by vaporizing the water in the sea, right? Just that we see temporarily that sun is covered by clouds because our vision is so far that we are seeing that it's covered, but sun is never covered. He's always bright, right? He's far away from all disturbances. Just like that, Supreme Personality of Godhead is never subjected to any of these potencies. The second paragraph is also explaining the same thing. I'm seeing if there's anything that we can read here. Okay. Yeah, we can read from this part. Can somebody read the selected part, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
It is the misfortune of the living entity, certainly not without reason, that the influence of the material energy acts on his pure consciousness and eternal bliss. This covering up of pure consciousness and eternal bliss is due to avidya, karma, samjna. The energy which acts on the infinitesimal living entities who misuse their minute independence. According to Vishnu Purana, Bhagavad Gita, and all other Vedic literatures, the living entities are generated from the Tatastha energy of the Lord, and thus they are always the energy of the Lord and are not the energetic. The living entities are like the sun rays. Although, as explained above, there is no qualitative difference between the sun and its rays, the sun's rays are sometimes overpowered by another energy of the sun, namely by clouds or by snowfall. Similarly, although the living entities are qualitatively one with the superior energy of the Lord, they have the tendency to be overpowered by the inferior material energy. In the Vedic hymns, it is said that the living entities are like the sparks of a fire. The sparks of fire also are fire, but the burning potency of the sparks is different from that of the original fire. When the sparks fly out of touch with the original fire, they come under the influence of a non-fiery atmosphere. Thus, they maintain the potency to be again one with the fire as sparks, but not as the original fire. The sparks can everlastingly remain within the original fire as its parts and parcels. But the moment the sparks become separated from the original fire, their misfortunes and miseries begin. The clear conclusion is that the Supreme Lord, who is the original fire, is never overpowered, but the infinitesimal sparks of the fire can become overpowered by the illusory effect of Maya. It is a most ludicrous argument to say that the Supreme Lord is overpowered by his own material energy. The Lord is the master of the material energy, but the living entities are in the conditioned state controlled by the material energy. This is the version of Bhagavad Gita. The froggish philosophers who put forward the argument that the Supreme Lord is overpowered by the material mode of goodness are themselves illusioned by the same material energy, although they think of themselves as liberated souls. They support their arguments by a false and laborious jugglery of words, which is a gift of the same illusory energy of the Lord. But the poor froggish philosophers, due to false sense of knowledge, cannot understand the situation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, Maitreya Muni is giving further details of why the living entity is influenced by the material energy or another energy of the Lord. Just like, the analogy is given here, right? Sun has different energies. Sun God has different energies. One of the energy is rays. One of the energy is clouds. One of the energy is snowfall. So in this example, beautifully it is being told, one of the energies can overpower the other energy. But the energetic is never overpowered by any of the energies. Just like clouds can block the rays temporarily for some time. So it is a temporary overpowering of one energy by another energy, right? And sun appears to be blocked, but it is not true. Similarly, the jivas, who are the material and the external energy of the Lord, are overpowered by his Maya potency, another energy of the Lord, right? But the energetic, the Lord is never overpowered by any of the energies he has, including the Maya energy, the Maya potency, right? And one of the other point that is made is that living entities are Tatastha energies. Tatastha, they can become part of the spiritual world, and when they become part of the spiritual world, they are part of spiritual energy, the internal potency of the Lord. But when they cross over and when they rebel and come to the material world, they are part of the material energy. So they are called Tatastha. The Tatastha is the banks, right? It's like a barrier, right? So second example given is about a spark in a fire and a fire itself. A spark, as long as it is with the fire, it has a similar potency as the fire. And the moment the spark flies away, right, the miseries begin. That means it is influenced by external energies there, and it is subjected to those energies, right? And qualitatively, it has the same power as the fire, but quantitatively, it is a small speck, and it can like just go off in a whiff, right? The Lord is the master of material energy, but the living entities are the conditioned state controlled by material energy. This is the important part. So the funny part and the conclusion here is the so-called Mayavadis are themselves influenced by illusionary energy. The Lord has put them in the illusion because the Lord doesn't want them to disturb the devotees. So the people who are Mayavadis, who say that the Lord is affected by material energy and the Maya, are themselves put in the Maya by the Lord himself. And the gift is given to them by, by the Maya energy to use the jugglery of words, so that they don't disturb the other people who are sincerely endeavoring in the path. That is the best part of this purport, right? So thus the demigods pray to the Supreme Lord that although his activities are very difficult to understand, they can still be understood to some extent by those who sincerely engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The demigods admitted that although Lord is apart from the material influence of creation, he nevertheless creates, maintains, and annihilates the complete cosmic manifestation by the agency of demigods. So he uses his potencies. One of the potencies is demigods for creation, maintenance, and annihilation. So this is completely, the logic is completely refuted here. That Ishvara is influenced by the Maya energy. It's illogical. The other question that is answered here is, why is the living entity suffering? Right? Even though the spirit soul is full of knowledge, bliss, and energy, why it is suffering? Right? So this is beautifully explained in this, in the next sloka. Yad ardhena vinumasya pumsa atma vipraya pratiyata upadrashtu swasiras chedanadika. The living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off. Can somebody read the purport? The first paragraph, please.
Yes, Prabhuji. A teacher in school once threatened his pupil that he would cut off the pupil's head and hang it on the wall so that the child could see how his head has been cut off. The child became frightened and stopped his mischief. Similarly, the miseries of the pure soul and the disruption of his self-identification are managed by the external energy of the Lord, which controls those mischievous living entities who wants to go against the will of the Lord. Actually, there is no bondage or misery for the living entities, nor does he ever lose his pure knowledge. In his pure consciousness, when he thinks a little seriously about his position, he can understand that he is externally subordinate to the mercy of the Supreme, and that his attempt to become one with Supreme Lord is a false illusion. Life after life, the living entities falsely tries to lord it over material nature and become the lord of material world. But there is no tangible result. At last, when frustrated, he gives up the material activities and tries to become one with the Lord and speculate with much jugglery of the words, but without success.
Yeah.
Correct.
The Prabhupada gives an example here, which is a little bit alarming example, but still valid example. In a school, when some student is being mischievous, sometimes a teacher says, "I'll cut your head off and hang it, and so you can see it." But when the head is cut off and put it on the wall, can you see that activity, Prabhuji's Matajis? Can you see that activity of some?
No.
Why not? Why not?
Because the head is already cut.
Exactly. So when the teacher threatens the student, he becomes frightened and stops the mischief. Similarly, the living entity is an illusion, right? This is like sometimes this also explains the further paragraphs. We'll read it. You will see in your dreams sometimes that your head is cut off. But can you really see that your head is cut off even in the dream? No, because Once your head is cut off, you can't see anything. But that is how, that is why it is an illusion. So why does the Lord put us in the illusion? Prabhuji's Matajis, why is he putting us in the illusion? Why are we subject to the illusion? Even the spirit soul is full of knowledge and bliss. We know everything, but we act as though we don't know anything, and we are, suffering in this material world. Why is Lord doing that for us? Why are we not remembering that we are full of bliss and knowledge? Anyone?
To enable us to enjoy the material world.
Hare Krishna?
To enable us to enjoy the material world.
Hare Krishna, yes. So that is our wish. That's what we ask the Lord for. We ask the Supreme Personality of Godhead that we want to enjoy. And we wanted to get subjected to these material natures. And that is why Lord made sure that it is hidden. It is like somebody wearing a locket with a jewel. And he's searching the jewel all over the place. He forgot that it is in the locket only. Right? The knowledge is there, but he just forgot that it is there. Right? There's another example that is given also. The experience is compared to the experience of once having his head cut off in a dream. The man whose head has been cut off also sees that his head has been cut off. If a person's head is severed, he loses his power to see. Therefore, if a man sees that his head has been cut off, it means that he thinks that it is an hallucination. Similarly, a living entity is eternally subordinate to the Supreme Lord, and he has a knowledge with him. But artificially, he thinks that he is God himself, and that although he is God, he has lost his knowledge due to Maya. This is Mayavada philosophy. This concept has no meaning, just as there is no meaning to seeing one's head being cut off. So this is a perfect example to refute this. This is the process by which knowledge is covered. And because this artificial rebellious condition of the living entity is given him all the troubles, it is to be understood that he should take to his normal life as a devotee of the Lord and be relieved of this misconception of being God. The so-called liberation of thinking oneself God is that the last reaction of avidya by which the living entity is entrapped. The conclusion is that living entity is deprived of eternal transcendental service to the Lord, becomes illusioned in many ways. Even in his conditional life, he is the eternal servant of the Lord. So that is the important part. In spiritual world, he is eternal servant of the Lord. Even in the material world, he is eternal servant of the Lord. How? How is it, Prabhuji's Mataji's, even in the material world, he is the eternal servant of the Lord?
We are serving his energy.
Haribo.
Maya Devi.
Yes. We are serving his energy in the material world. That is how we are serving him either ways. His servitude under the spell of illusionary Maya is also a manifestation of his eternal condition of service. Because he has rebelled against the service of the Lord, he is therefore put in the service of the Maya. Perfect. Right? He is put in the service of the Maya. He is still serving, but in a perverted manner. When he wants to get out of the service under the material bondage, he next desires to become one with the Lord. That is another illusion. Right? Another illusion is he wants to become one with the Lord. Right? That is not correct. The best course, therefore, is to surrender to the Lord, not the energy, the material energy, directly to the Lord, and get rid of the illusionary Maya for good, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7.14. Daivihi esha gunamayi mama maya dratyaya mameva ya prapadyante mayam meta tarantite. This material world, this material energy is very difficult to overcome. The only way you can overcome is by surrendering unto me. Mam eva ye prapadyante. Just surrender unto me. Very clearly explained here. Yeah. This is a further explanation of the same question about the spirit soul. Misidentification. Remember, there is a question about misidentification. Why does the Jiva misidentifies himself? Yatha jale chandramasa kampadistakkrito guna drishyate san api drishtur atmano guna. As the moon reflected on the water appears to the seer to tremble due to being associated with the quality of the water, so the self associated with matter appears to be qualified as master. Right? Prabhuji Mataji, the moon, if you think about it, is the fixed object in the spiritual world. The reflection of the moon on the water trembles. It moves here and there. Is the moon actually moving? No. It is the reflection of the moon that is moving. Why? Because the water is moving. Right? Just like that, when the spirit soul comes into the material world, it misidentifies and trembles. There is no stability. Right? That's what it is told. Just like the moon reflected on the water appears to tremble, the self associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter. Right? We are associated with the matter. That's why we appear to be associated with the matter. Right? So I think this is self-explanatory. Let me see if there is anything that we can read. Yeah, probably we can read the second part of the this paragraph. The selected part, can somebody read, please? There's one example that we need to understand.
The light of sun and moon reflected on matter makes the matter bright and praiseworthy. The living entities are compared to the light of the sun and the moon, eliminating material manifestations like trees and mountains. The reflection of sun or moon is accepted as real. Sun and the moon are actually different from the sun and moon themselves, although they are always connected. The light of moon spread throughout the sky appears to be impersonal, but the moon planet, as it is it's personal, and the living entities on the moon planet are also personal. In the rays of the moon, different material entities appear to be comparatively less or more important. The light of the moon on the Taj Mahal appears to be more beautiful than the same light in the wilderness. Although the light of the moon is same everywhere, due to its beauty being differently appreciated, it appears differently. Similarly, the light of the Lord is equally distributed everywhere, but due to being indifferently received, it appears to be different. One should not therefore accept the reflection of the moon on water as actual and misunderstand the whole situation through monistic philosophy. The quivering quality of the moon is also variable. When water is standing still, there is no quivering. A more settled conditioned soul quivers less, but due to material connection, the quivering quality is more or less present everywhere. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So in addition to the example that is given, it is also told that the moon, when it shines on different objects, it appears beautiful in different places. Moon, when it is shining on Taj Mahal, is very beautiful, whereas moon shining in a thick forest, you don't see much there. But doesn't mean that moon is less effulgent. The moon is the moon and it has the same effulgence. But how it is perceived in different conditions is what is explained here. It is depending on the surface it is reflecting on. If the water is still, you will see the perfect moon standing still. But water, when it is compared to material nature, when it is unstable, it's quivering more, right? But the actual reflection, actual moon's light is fixed and it is present everywhere. But so next sloka, 12th. But the misconception of self-identity can be diminished gradually by the mercy of personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, through the process of devotional service to the Lord in the mode of detachment. So this sloka is giving the solution for all these problems, right? For at least the problem of the being bewildered, the being misidentified. How do we get out of this, right? The spirit soul is subjected to the Maya energy, the avidya, the nescience, and it is also disidentified. How do you get out of this? So Maitreya Muni here is explaining nicely. The solution to all this is bhakti, devotional service. Can somebody read the purport, please?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
The quivering quality of material existence, which comes from identification with matter or from thinking oneself, under the material influence of philosophical speculation to be God, can be eradicated by devotional service to the Lord, by the mercy of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. As discussed in the first canto, because the application of devotional service to Lord Vasudeva invites pure knowledge, it quickly detaches one from the material conception of life and thus revives one's normal condition of spiritual existence, even in this life, and free one from the material winds which cause one to quiver. Only knowledge in devotional service can elevate one towards the path of liberation. The development of knowledge for the purpose of knowing everything without rendering devotional service is considered fruitless labor, and one cannot get the desired result by such labor of love. Lord Vasudeva is pleased by devotional service only, and thus his mercy is realized by association with pure devotees of the Lord. Pure devotees of the Lord are transcendental to all material desires, including the desires for the results of repetitive activities and philosophical speculation. If one wants to acquire the mercy of the Lord, he has to associate with pure devotees. Such association alone can, by degrees, release one from the quivering elements. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hari Bol. Lot of concepts in this purport. The quivering quality of material existence, the misidentification, and the influence of philosophical speculation can be eradicated by devotional service to the Lord. The only solution to all these problems is devotional service to the Lord. Bhakti, perfectly defined by Srila Prabhupada. And this by mercy of the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. The application of devotional service to the Lord invites pure knowledge. It quickly detaches one from the material conception of life and thus revives one normal condition of spiritual existence and frees from the material winds which cause one to quiver. The bhakti or devotional service through knowledge, like this, like attending Srimad Bhagavatam classes, attending Bhagavad Gita classes, will lead one to devotional service and it will help us get out of this. Only knowledge in devotional service can elevate one towards path of liberation, right? Knowledge is needed, right? But how much? The development of knowledge for the purpose of knowing everything without rendering devotional service is considered fruitless. So Prabhupada is telling, don't run after knowledge, a lot of knowledge. How much knowledge is needed? Good enough knowledge to understand that this spirit soul is conditioned in the material world, and we require association, we require bhakti, which is devotional service. But Prabhupada is saying here, don't go too much after the knowledge. Don't go and attend tons and tons of classes unnecessarily. Go for service. Come to satsangs regularly. Come attend Bhagavatam classes, morning aartis regularly. When called, please come early to service. Don't go unnecessarily attend more and more classes. That's what is being told here, right? Lord Vasudeva is pleased by his service, devotional service only, and association of pure devotees. And where do you get association of pure devotees? In satsang, in Bhagavatam classes, in Bhagavad Gita classes. So please don't miss them. There are so many opportunities that are given to all of us. In the weekends, in the weekdays, we are planning so many things. Please do not miss them for anything else, right? If one wants to acquire mercy of the Lord, he has to associate with pure devotees. Such association alone can by all degrees release one from the quivering elements, the material elements. It's very, very important. So how much knowledge is needed? Just enough to understand. And after that, go after devotional service, right? Go associate with devotees. Follow the ABCD principle, which is very important. So please do not miss any classes. Please come forward for any service that is asked for, and don't prioritize any other things. That's what is told here. So 13. Service vanquishes miseries. When the senses are satisfied in the seer super soul, the personality of Godhead, and merge with him, all miseries are completely vanquished, as after a sound sleep. When senses are engaged in serving the Lord Hari, all miseries are vanquished. Right? Param drishtva nivartate. All senses should be completely engaged in the service of the Lord. Since the entire material existence is meant for sense gratification, the senses are the medium of material activities, and they cause the quivering of the steady soul. Therefore, these senses are to be detached from all such material activities. According to impersonalists, the senses are stopped from work by merging the soul into super soul Brahman. The devotees, however, do not stop material senses from acting. So some of the philosophers, some of the Mayavadi philosophers say, stop the senses, restrain them from hankering. But that is not possible. Senses are so strong that you cannot do that. The only way to overcome that is to engage your senses for higher purposes, right? In the service of the Lord. They engage the transcendental senses in the service of the transcendence, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In either case, the activity of the senses in the material field are to be stopped by cultivation of knowledge. If possible, they can be engaged in the service of the Lord. The senses are transcendental, but their activities become polluted when contaminated by matter. We have to treat the senses to cure them of material disease, not stop them from acting, as suggested by impersonalists. That is the wrong philosophy of impersonalists. Consciousness is active by nature and cannot be stopped from working. That is also told in the Bhagavad Gita. You cannot stop somebody doing something. Artificially stopping a mischievous child is not the real remedy. So say a child is acting hyper and is doing a lot of mischievous things. You cannot say stop, sit silent. He will never sit silent. What you need to do is to engage him in another activity. Say he is holding a knife, very dangerous. How do you take care of that? By giving a chocolate into his another hand, you can slowly take away the knife. Similarly, you have to engage your senses with a better activity, a higher activity than what you are engaged with. That is how you can help the senses. When the eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, the tongue is engaged in tasting prasadam, or remnants of foodstuff offered to the Lord, the ears are engaged in hearing his glories, the hands are engaged in cleaning the temple of the Lord, the legs are engaged in visiting his temples. Or when all the senses are engaged in the transcendental variegatedness, then only the transcendental senses become satiated and eternally free from material engagement. Right? This is what is explained here, which we already know. Right? Just we need to be conscious about it and consider the devotional service as the means for any alternative engagements. 14. Hearing and chanting of Lord's qualities. Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. Right? This is the second solution that is given. What are the most important things to be in this devotional path? Chanting and hearing, very, very important. Our 16 rounds of chanting has to be done every day. No compromise. Whether we eat or not, whether we sleep or not, you have to finish the 16 rounds of chanting, which is the recommended dose for the day. Hearing. You must hear lectures. There are a lot of ways you can hear lectures. You can hear in YouTube. You can buy a device that is not connected to an internet and hear. As His Grace Lilananda Prabhu says, start your day by hearing. Put on the machine and start hearing. That is the only way you can engage your senses in the transcendental form. Right? So here two examples are given. One for sadhakas and one for liberated souls. For sadhakas, like all of us, including me, The way to engage your senses is chanting and hearing, right? By chanting and hearing, you achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. Then what is to speak of who attain attraction for serving the flavor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet? That is the liberated souls, the people in the Bhava Bhakti or Raga Bhakti. For them, it is very easy. For them, they're already there, right? So let me read this paragraph. The two different methods for controlling the material senses are recommended in the Vedic scripture wisdom. One of the process is jnana, or the path of philosophical understanding of the Supreme, Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The other one is direct engagement in the transcendental serving service of the Lord. Of these two most popular methods, the path of devotional service is recommended here as the best because one on the path of devotional service does not have to wait for the attainment of fruitive results or pious activities or for the results of the knowledge. The two stages of executing devotional service are: first, the stage of practicing devotional service with our present senses under regulations of the recognized scriptures, and second, attaining sincere attachment for serving the particles in the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. The first stage is called sadhana bhakti or devotional service for the neophytes, which is rendered under the direction of a pure devotee. And the second stage is called raga bhakti, in which the mature devotee automatically takes to the various services of the Lord out of sincere attachment. The great sage Maitreya now gives the final answer to all the questions of Vidura. Devotional service to the Lord is the ultimate means to mitigate all miserable conditions. The path of knowledge or that of mystic gymnastics may be adopted as means for the purpose, but unless mixed with bhakti, jnana mishra bhakti is the only way, or devotional service, they are unable to award the desired result. By practicing sadhana bhakti, one may gradually raise to the point of raga bhakti, and by performing raga bhakti in loving transcendental service, one can even control the supreme powerful Lord. So, starting stage, sadhana bhakti, hearing and chanting. Next stage, raga bhakti, which is spontaneous love for the Lord, right? And people from sadhana bhakti do sincere practice will get to raga bhakti. And attaining raga bhakti is very, very difficult. It's almost impossible. Because why? At this stage, the Lord himself becomes controlled by the jiva. And it is very, very difficult to obtain. But both are described here by Maitreya Muni. So, by end of the 14th sloka, all questions are nicely answered by Maitreya Muni. Now, Vidura is giving his realizations and understanding of the answers. So Vidura is saying, "O powerful sage, my Lord, all my doubts about Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities now have been removed by your convincing words. My mind is now perfectly entering into them." I move quickly because we are running out of time. And then he says, "O learned sage, your explanations are very good, and they should be. Disturbances to the conditioned soul have no other basis than movement of the external energy of the Lord." Right? Says, "I'm very satisfied. Thank you very much for your answers. Both the lowest fools and he who is in transcendental to all intelligence by enjoy happiness, whereas persons in between them suffer the material pangs." So this is important sloka. Let's read this sloka. So he says there are three kinds of people. One, the lowest of the fools. Third, the transcendentalists who are on the highest stage. Both enjoy happiness. Let's see how. And he says persons in the middle, they suffer the material pangs. Let's see how. Can somebody read this paragraph?
Hare Krishna. Shall I read, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
The lowest of fools do not understand material miseries. They pass their lives merrily and do not inquire into the miseries of life. Such persons are almost on the level of the animals, who, although in the eyes of superiors are always miserable in life, are unaware of material distresses. A hawk's life is degraded in its standard of happiness, which entails living in a filthy place, engaging in sex enjoyment at every opportune moment, and laboring hard in a struggle for existence but this is unknown to the hog. Similarly, human beings who are unaware of the miseries of material existence are happy in sex life and hard labor and are the lowest of fools. Yet, because they have no sense of miseries, they supposedly enjoy so-called happiness. The other class of men, those who are liberated and are situated in the transcendental position above intelligence, are really happy and are called Paramhansas. But persons who are neither like hogs and dogs, nor on the level of Paramhansas, feel the material pangs, and for them inquiry about the supreme truth is necessary. The Vedanta Sutra states, Ahato Brahma Jignasa. Now one should inquire about Brahman. This inquiry is necessary for those who are between the Paramhansas and the fools who have forgotten the question of self-realization in the midst of life in sense gratification. Very good.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So the 99.99% of the people in the world are in the lowest category of lowest of fools. They think they're happy. They think they're happy. Do you think they're really happy? No, they're not. It's a perception that they're happy. If you ask anybody outside who are never attended any class like this or never knew about it, you catch one and say, hey, how are you doing? I'm doing very nice. I'm very happy. This is a perception, right? You think they're happy. There is no difference between them and animals, right? A hog thinks it's happy by living in a filthy place and enjoying it every opportunity moment and laboring hard for the struggle of existence. 99.9% people are doing the same thing, right? They have no sense of miseries. They supposedly enjoy so-called happiness. They think they're happy, but they're not. They're completely miserable. That is the lowest of fools. Many people are in this situation. The topmost classes are transcendentalists, Paramahamsas, right? They are very happy, really very happy, because they are on the highest stage of bhakti path. The people in between, like us, all of us, the sadhaka bhaktas, it is important for us to ask this question: why are we suffering in this world? Athato Brahma Jignasa. Now one should inquire about the Brahman, the spirit soul, right? It's very important for us who have at least gone a little bit into this path and understood this, to ask this question and follow the path given by the Paramahamsas, by surrendering to a guru, understanding, by Sravanam Kirtanam, and all those things. It's very difficult, very important to understand that we have to continue this path, right? Further explanation, further understanding. He is reiterating his understanding, right? The best way to converse with somebody is you ask a question, you get the answer, and then you reiterate the answer with your understanding to make sure that you understood correctly. Otherwise, what if you understood wrongly? So Vidura is reiterating his understanding, right? He's saying, but my dear sir, I'm obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifest is without substance, although it appears real. I'm confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. So he's realizing that by serving a guru's lotus feet, you will understand this more and better and give up the false idea of material contamination, right? And then he's continuing this. By serving the feet of a spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is unchangeable enemy of Madhu demon and whose service vanquishes one's material distresses. It is further adding it, saying that the two results of the services are serving the spiritual master, one develops transcendental ecstasy in Lord's service in various relationships, and what does it do? It dispels all material distresses. That he is reiterating or supporting the answers by his understanding. 20. Persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees who are progressing on the path back to kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and controller of all living entities. So what is Vidura telling here? You have to have certain austerity, certain rules and regulations, yama and niyama, to obtain the service of pure devotees. You cannot whimsically ask for service. When you ask for service, you have to be ready for austerities. What are the austerities? When somebody asks you to come early for a service, you have to go. When somebody asks you to get rid of give some time for spiritual work, you should get rid of some other material work and go there, right? You should tell people who are coming to your house on Saturday and Sunday that not this week, and then go for service. That austerity is needed for serving the pure devotees. You have to prioritize bhakti, devotional service. Only then you can get out of this nuisance, right? 21-22. After creating the total material energy, the Mahat Tattva, and therefore thereby manifesting the gigantic universal form with senses and sense organs, the Supreme Lord entered within it. So he's continuing his reiteration of the understanding. The Purusha incarnation lying in the casual ocean is called the original Purusha in the material creations, and in his Virat form, in whom all the planets and their inhabitants live, he has many thousands of legs and hands. Right? He is reiterating his understanding from the previous chapters coming. So from now onwards, 23rd onwards, Vidura asks more questions. Vidura asks more questions, which are explained throughout. So from 23rd to 42nd are all questions. Very quickly we'll read through. We have 10 minutes. Like I'm going to go a little bit over time. There is no purports here. It's all questions. So we'll quickly go through it. 23. O great Brahmana, you have told me the gigantic Virat form and his senses, sense objects, and 10 kinds of life air exist with the 3 kinds of life vigor. Now, if you will kindly explain to me the different powers of these specific divisions. So, an inquisitive mind always asks more and more questions so that he can understand more in depth, right? That is what the quality is shown by Vidura here. So from 24 onwards, all are questions asked. So let's quickly go through that. 24. Oh my Lord, I think that process manifests in the form of sons, grandsons, and family members has spread all over universe in different varieties of species. Right? This is just a vibhuti. This is all vibhutis of the Lord being asked. It is a prequel to a question. O learned Brahmana, please describe how the leader of all demigods, namely Prajapati, Brahma, decided to establish the various Manus, the heads of the ages. Please describe the Manus also, and please describe the descendants of Manus. So it will come. The answer will come in the future sections, but he's asking about Brahma, Prajapatis, and Manus. Next. O son of Mitra, kindly describe how the planets are situated above the earth as well as underneath it. And also, please mention their measurements as well as that of earthly planets. So what are the planets above earth, below earth? The scientific details of the planets are also being asked. So it will be explained in the future shlokas, right? The cosmic manifestation and the details. Also, please describe the living beings under different classifications. Shubhumans, humans, those born of embryo, those born of perspiration, those are twice born, and the plants and vegetables. Kindly describe the generation subdivisions. This is like all botany, right? And zoology. Different kinds of species that are born through different ways. Please explain those things. Plants, vegetables, birds, embryos, how the living beings born through embryos. All this, please explain all of this again. This is also asked in 2nd canto, by the way, and asked again here. More further details will be given in the further chapters. Please also describe the incarnation of the material modes of nature, Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. And please describe the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his magnanimous activities. All the avatars, Purusha avatars, Guna avatars, Shakta avatars, literary avatars, all these things he is asking to explain. Oh, great sage, kindly describe the divisions and orders of human society in terms of symptoms, behavior, and characteristics of mental equilibrium and sense control. And please describe the births of the great sages and categorical divisions of the Vedas. Right? divisions of the order. Varnashrama Dharma is asking. Great sages, all the sages, Saptarishis, and how Vedas have been divided is being asked here. Please also describe the expansions of different sacrifices and the path of mystic powers. Analytical study of knowledge and devotional service, all with respective regulations. Different sacrifices, the procedures, the mystic powers, all those things will be explained. Please also describe the imperfections and contradictions of faithless atheists, the situation of crossbreeding, and the movements of the living entities in various species of life, according to their particular modes of nature and work. The transmigration of the soul, how it happens. Please explain that. You may also describe the non-contradictory causes of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification and salvation, and also the different means of livelihood and different processes of law and order, as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. At Manusam, basically all the laws that are described in the different Vedas being asked here. The whole Bhagavatam, these questions are the basis of the entire Bhagavatam, all 12 cantos. And there are references to the answers. I will share in the chat. You can see where these are answered. Please explain the regulations for offering respects to forefathers. How do you respect your forefathers? The creation of Pitruloka, the time schedule in the planets, stars and luminaries, the time scale, right? Pitrulokas, what do you need to do for Pitrus? Explain. Please also describe the fruitive results of charity and penance and digging reservoirs for water. What are the benefits of digging wells and reservoirs? Please describe the situation of persons who are far away from home and also the duty of man in awkward positions. Dharma sankatas, when you are in a dharma sankata, what to do is explained. Oh, sinless one, because of personality of Godhead, the controller of all living entities, is the father of all religion, and all those are who candidates for religious activities, kindly describe how one can be completely satisfied. In the religious activities, how can be satisfied? How can one be satisfied? Oh, best among Brahmanas, those who are spiritual masters are very kind to the needy. They are always kind to their followers, disciples, and sons, and without being asked by them, the spiritual master describes all that is knowledge. So this is about spiritual master. How, when, why you need a spiritual master, and who are they? Who are the people who are spiritual masters, and how they impart the knowledge? How should you submissively ask the questions? And please describe how many dissolutions there are there for the elements of material nature, and who survives after the dissolutions to serve the Lord while he is asleep. So the different dissolutions. There is partial dissolution, full dissolution, and who are the people who survive after that, even after dissolutions, right? Is asked. So this is very much nicely explained in the future chapters of the dissolutions. What are the truths regarding living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead? What are their identities? What are the specific values in the knowledge of the Vedas? And what are the necessities for the spiritual master and disciples? Again, the truths, the disciples, spiritual master, everything is described by the answer of this question. Spotless devotees of the Lord have mentioned the source of such knowledge. How could one have knowledge of the devotional service and detachment without the help of such devotees? Right? There are a lot of devotees that you can associate with to get the knowledge. But how can you have the knowledge without association, without devotional service? Is it possible, first of all, is being asked here. By the way, Prabhuji Mataji, all these questions are asked for us, not for Vidura. Vidura knows everything. Just to reveal this knowledge to all of us, these have been asked. So this is the last but one sloka. My dear sage, I have put all these questions before you with a view to knowing the pastimes of Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are the friend of all, so kindly describe them all, those who have lost their vision, right? Like people like us, all of us who lost the vision. Vidura is asking, please explain these answers to the questions entangling them with the pastimes of Hari, kind of in a story way, right? Tell them in a story way. So that's why the whole Bhagavatam is a story of a Bhagavata, a disciple, a devotee of the Lord, and explained this question. O spotless one, your answers to all these questions will grant immunity from all material miseries. Such charity is greater than all Vedic charities, sacrifices, penance. What is the greatest charity, Prabhuji Mataji? Giving the spiritual knowledge to somebody is the greatest charity. If you give them food, water, money, it's temporary. Tomorrow they are hungry again. Tomorrow the money is gone. Tomorrow they're thirsty again. What's the best thing you can do? Give them prasadam and give them spiritual knowledge. that gives a permanent solutions to their problem. The last sloka of this chapter, Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, thus the chief of the sages, who was always enthusiastic about describing topics regarding the personality of Godhead, began to narrate the descriptive explanation of the Puranas, being so infused by Vidura. He was very much enlivened by speaking on the transcendental activities of the Lord. So he heard all these questions and he's very happy. The Maitreya Muni is very happy that Vidura is asking all these questions and he could enlighten all of us with the answers, and is very much happy to answer. Great learned sages like Maitreya Muni are always very enthusiastic about describing the transcendental activities of the Lord. Maitreya Muni, thus being invited by Vidura to speak, appeared to be smiling because he actually felt transcendental bliss. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Further Inquiries by Vidura. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji's Matajis, for giving me the opportunity to serve you all. I hope, please forgive me the mistakes, and please ask me any questions you have, any queries, any supporting comments, anything you want to share in the next few minutes. Sorry, I went above the time, but I couldn't cut this chapter into half because the second half is only questions. I did that so that we can finish the chapter. Thank you very much. Please, you can ask any questions now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandat Pranam.
At the initial slokas, I don't remember, Prabhu. Maitreya is one of the...
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Your voice is very low. Can you please speak up?
Okay. 1 second, Prabhu. Is this better, Prabhu?
Yeah, better, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay. One of the sloka meaning, I don't know, remember, Prabhu, which is sloka, exact translation. It is been mentioned, I think it was a question, or I don't know whether it is an answer. It is mentioned as God as a Nirguna, Prabhu. Okay?
Yes.
But at the same time, it is not mentioned, or maybe it is mentioned somewhere else, that God has a guna as well. Because at least in any of the purports, okay, Prabhupada purports, like anywhere it is not mentioned that it is Nirguna. Okay, means it doesn't give much importance. Yes, God is also Nirguna. Okay, so I was just wondering why explicitly he was saying that the God is Nirguna, Prabhu.
Yes.
One of the initial purports, Prabhu. Yeah.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Here.
Seems like here it is given importance for the Nirguna. I don't know.
So, Prabhuji, the second sloka, here it is mentioned. There are 3 things that are mentioned here. I think here.
Oh, yes, correct. Second sloka.
This is here or the next one? Let me check. 1 second, Prabhuji.
The Lord is Saguna by his own internal potency. That is
here only?
Second one only. Second only, second paragraph.
Oh, second. Yeah, here. Okay, in the juggler thing.
Yeah.
Correct.
Prabhuji, so the gunas that are talked here are the modes of material nature. The material world is caused by its material energy, correct? Right? It is energy. So is saguna because his material energy has those gunas. Right? He is energetic and there's energy. So by hypothesis, if the energy has the gunas, he has the gunas, correct? The material energy, the material potency has the modes, 3 modes, and the gunas, which are important to all the living entities. Because the energy is coming from the energetic, you can hypothesize saying that, he has gunas. But he is energetic and he is nirguna because he is not impacted by those gunas, right? The gunas are coming from him as one of his energies, But he is nirguna because he doesn't have those material gunas. He has spiritual gunas, right? He has spiritual energy, right? He's not impacted by any of those things. The Lord is saguna by his own internal potency, but at the same time he is nirguna since he is not in touch with the material energy. The gunas here are the material gunas. So that is why he is nirguna, because he doesn't have the gunas of the material energy. But he is saguna because of his internal spiritual energy. He has those gunas, spiritual gunas, but not the material gunas. That is the distinction, Prabhuji.
Got it, Prabhu. Got it, Prabhu. So he doesn't have gunas with material, okay, point of view. In that context, he is nirguna. From spiritual point of view, yes, he is saguna. Okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, got it, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions, Prabhuji, Mataji?
Because he is not attached to anything material, he can call it as a nirguna.
Yes.
With respect to the material.
Yes, he is creating the energy for helping us to get back to Godhead.
Godhead.
But he is not attached to that. He is not influenced by that. He is never influenced by that. He is above and beyond.
Above and beyond.
Okay.
Wonderful session, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji Mataji. If there are no further questions, I'll call this close the session. Thank you for attending the class today and helping me go through this chapter yesterday by giving the service. Please forgive me if there are any mistakes, as if you forgive your servant maid. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, this is wonderful session, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Thank you, Prabhuji Mataji, for attending it. Panchakalptarabhyascha kripasindhabhyo evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo. Koti Vaishnava Srila Prabhupada.